Hello and welcome, everyone, to the Evolve podcast, supporting you to connect with the power of your soul, rise above all your limits, and give and receive more love in all forms. I am your host, Tanya Penny. I'm an occupational therapist, illness and trauma guide, and spiritual alchemist, author of the Connect with the Divine You book and journals. In this episode, I'm going to be talking about the wound of parentification. What is it, and why do so many of us have it? And how do we begin healing it? So, the past couple of years, I feel like this has become a bigger topic. And I feel like this year it's really being put out there a lot more and felt really guided to share about this. And it's something that I've always known that I've struggled with. And again, not until the past couple of years where I was really called to do deeper healing on my mom and dad wounds, did I really see the depth of it and what this has really created in my life. So, parentification definition. It happens when a child is made to take on the role of an adult, and that might be emotionally, physically, financially, or fill in the blank, other responsibilities, and without the support from their parents or other adults. So, caring for parents and siblings. And another piece might be having to care for yourself, having to take care of your needs when it really was a parent's responsibility to do so, but they couldn't or didn't fully do so. So, some examples of why this parentification might have happened for you. It could have happened because of a divorce. It could take place because one or both of your parents have not fully matured, and I usually mean that emotionally. Having physically unavailable parents. So it could have been divorce, or perhaps a parent was working all the time, or fill in the blank. Parents that have their own unresolved traumas, and oftentimes attachment traumas, attachment difficulties. Perhaps death of a parent, right? Physically unavailable could mean because there was death of a parent or a primary caregiver. Perhaps a parent was deep in addiction, alcoholism, drug, etc. A parent that has had or has a chronic disease or disability. Again, an emotionally unavailable parent for all the reasons I might have mentioned already. Parent with a mental illness, whether it was diagnosed or not. A physically abusive relationship between parents, or physically or sexually abusive parent-child relationship, a physically or sexually abusive parent-child relationship. So being put in this role or feeling like you have to take it on. So some of us, we were put in this role like blatantly, and some of us just felt like we had to take it on. And what that does to us is it really takes away the joy of what is meant to be a carefree time in our life. As a child, in a quote unquote perfect childhood, which I know many of us didn't have, or you wouldn't be here listening to this podcast, we didn't have a childhood where we felt completely safe and supported and loved. And because of that, we weren't able to fully have the childhood we were meant to have. The parentified child feels as though their parent and or siblings cannot survive without them. That is a huge pressure, you guys. I really want you to take in the depth of this, the severity of this. So I was put in the role of my mother's counselor from a very young age, the age of 5, I remember. that she would dump her problems on me, like problems that no child should have to hear, even a teenage child. And I was 5, right? Problems between her and my father, um, uh, other things as well, right? Just so not, not. Um, I also had a parent that has alcohol addiction, drug addiction. The other one was mentally ill, undiagnosed, both emotionally unavailable. I also had physical abuse by a parent and sexual abuse by a parent and verbal as well. I didn't put that in there, but verbal abuse can also be a part of this. Thank God I didn't have siblings. So, that would have added more, but I felt like I needed to and was put in the role of taking care of my parents emotionally, sexually, etc. Obviously, both of my parents were also very immature, right? And again, we're not blaming our parents. It's just looking at the cold, hard facts, the cold, hard truth of what happened, right? Not blaming because it probably got passed down from their parents to some degree. So again, this creates a huge burden and it creates unhealthy patterns that continue for a lifetime until we become aware of it, which many of us are being called to do in this lifetime. This is our soul's purpose. A part of our soul's purpose is to realize this and to heal this on a deeper level. So it creates patterns of what I call extreme people pleasing and superhuman, superwoman, superman. And what that looks like is we are denying our own wants, needs, and desires and putting our needs, wants, and desires last again and again, whether that looks like emotional, financial, physical, again, fill in the blank, spiritual. And the crazy thing, again, but it's so common as adults, not only do we continue to do this in the relationships with our siblings and parents, but even if we don't have relationships with these people anymore, we often get into relationships and careers. We often get into personal and professional relationships where we are doing the same thing, right? Where we are being the pleaser, where we are being the superhuman, or because of this extreme fear of taking care of somebody else again, we isolate. We isolate in our personal relationships, so we don't get into deeper relationships, either with friends or a partner, because we're so afraid of having to take care of somebody else again. Or in our careers, we can be guided we all have divine gifts, and we might deny or not fully share those gifts because, again, we are afraid of having to take care of somebody else, of the responsibility. So we can do either fully get into those kinds of relationships again, personal and professional, or avoid them because of the fear of being responsible and having to take care of other people. Neither one is good, right? Neither extreme is good. It's all about finding the balance. And this has taken me and is still something I need to work on. Even at this point, even though I've been doing this work deeply since 2007 and 8, and teaching others, coaching and guiding others since 2008, and more fully in 2010 when the MS diagnosis was cleared. So again, why do we want to heal this I can't even say it, parentification wound? Because this unhealthy balance of people pleasing, of the superhuman patterns, they cause us to burn out and eventually create illness, which is a calling from our soul. We often will not make changes. We will not be pushed to heal these unresolved in this case, parentification wounds, unless there is some kind of pain. And for most of us, that pain is often illness. And it can also be other pains. It can be financial breakdown. It can be career breakdown. It can be partner or relationship, personal, professional breakdowns. So, this is why it is so important that we are doing this deeper work and healing these deeper wounds that we are talking about today. So, some signs and symptoms. Again, I think all this information is good. It can help us identify and fully acknowledge this. So, some signs or symptoms that you may be in this type of wound and still have this unresolved wound. You could have had academic troubles as a child, or you could have been the overachiever. It can go both ways. It can go both ways. Substance abuse, eating disorders, extreme guilt or shame, anxiety, depression, relentless worry. I remember at the age of 5 years old, I was supposed to be taking a nap on my grandmother's couch. And I was crying, and she heard me crying, and she came and she asked what was wrong. And I said, I'm worried about my parents, right? Like that was not my job as a 5 year old, but I was. I was put in that role. Stomach aches, headaches as a younger child, asthma. And then as we get older, it can be other, I don't want to say just asthma. Asthma, I'm going to say, and allergies. And then as adults, other illnesses, of course. I almost forgot anger. So anger, like in anger that you're not really, I'm going to say aggression in anger, that you're not really sure why it's there. I remember even until recently, I would have this anger at my mother. And sometimes I took it out on her when I was a teenager and a younger adult. And then as I got older, I was like, God, what is this rage towards my mother? And fear, and fear. And this was a part of it. This was part of it. Again, social difficulties, isolation because you're afraid of taking care of others, or when I say social difficulties, either you are an extreme extrovert, like you cannot not be social, or isolation. So I've done both. I was extremely social, and then as I got older, it turned into severe isolation. It can look like overworking or over giving in personal relationships, like that giving, 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 but no receiving. And in our professional relationships, it can look like overworking and then not getting paid for what you are actually doing, what feels good, what's honoring of you. Inability to trust others, trouble maintaining relationships. This kind of goes through some previous ones. Inability to fully enjoy activities that you are doing for pleasure. Neglecting your own needs and emotions. Always putting other people's first, right? So those are some signs and symptoms. So take a moment. I just want to pause because I know that might have been a lot of information. I would love for you to take a moment, pause this if you need to. And I want you, I say that we look back, but we don't stare. So, part one, I'm going to say of how do we heal? How do we begin or continue healing this deeper wound of parentification? The first thing we need to do is acknowledge the truth of the past. So, I'm going to invite you to take a moment, pause this if you need to, and I want you to reflect on your childhood and which of these is true for you. Did you have to emotionally support siblings and parents in a way that wasn't really appropriate? Were you put in a position where you needed to financially or felt you needed to financially support the family? So you gave up sports and, fun things that you were meant to have in childhood and young adulthood. And yes, I know that our parents try to instill, I already hear this question, which is why I'm answering it, you know, yes, these are a lot of our parents tried to instill good work ethics, so might have had you work in your teenage years. And I'm going to say the extreme would have been, the unhealthy would have been that you had to give up all of your or most of your fun activities in order to financially support what you wanted and needed, or even your families, right? It could have been you or your families. Um, yeah. So just take a few moments. We're not blaming our parents, but we're just acknowledging the truth of our past. This has to happen, you guys. So I talk about us being that divine parent to ourselves. That's one of our soul's purpose in this lifetime. And this is a part of it, is to be that divine parent and acknowledge, okay, you know what? My younger parts, yes, you were put in this type of role and position, and it wasn't fair. It wasn't healthy. It wasn't okay. Then, when you're ready, I'd like you to look at your life now and with, again, compassion, compassion, compassion. Acknowledge how and where is this impacting you now? How has this impacted your health? What does it look like? How are you doing this? How are you still showing up and being the people pleaser and the superhuman, superman, superwoman in professional and or personal relationships? Where is it out of balance? So again, take a minute to pause this if you need to. Are you overgiving in terms of emotional support, in terms of financial support, physical support, other physical support? And you're not getting that give and receive, which is so necessary, whether it's a personal relationship or a professional relationship. So, what that might look like in a professional relationship is you're not being compensated financially for the amount that you are giving, perhaps emotionally to your clients. I know a lot of you listening are healers, coaches, guides, light workers, empaths, fill in the blank. So when I say to the extreme, everyone people pleases, everyone has a superhuman, and that's not a bad thing, except when we're doing it to the extreme. And you know, at the expense of your health and yourself. So are you in debt? Are you having a health issue? Are you mental or physical? So these are some signs that you are in the extreme because of this parentification wound. Next, I'd like you to look at, okay, given what you acknowledged above, what are those limiting beliefs and fears that these younger wounded parts that took on this parentification role and wound, what are the fears and limiting beliefs that you're holding? So I'll give you an example. And again, why are we looking at these fears and limiting beliefs? Because they are what are holding you in these unhealthy patterns and actions that I'm talking about that are depleting you and keeping you from fully loving and honoring yourself. So I realized when I looked back that I had this belief, this fear, that if I didn't take care of my mother, that she would die. And then, of course, I'd be left alone. Now, as a child, we know that we can't be left alone. We need an adult to take care of us, even if it's half-assed, right? We can't work. We can't go get money as a very young child. Of course, as an older teenager, we can. But a lot of us, this wound started at the age of 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And so what are the limiting beliefs and fears these younger parts of you are holding that keep you in these unhealthy patterns because of this unresolved wound? So again, mine was if I didn't do these things for my mother, I would die. She would die and then I would die, right? So take a few minutes again, pause if you need to, right? I'm responsible. I would say with my father, the belief was I have to give him physically what he wanted sexually in order to get his love so that he would protect me from my mother, who was undiagnosed mental illness. So, again, with compassion and curiosity is so needed here. This is going to be really painful at times. And again, part of us being this divine parent to yourself and your younger parts is showing up and acknowledging what happened, acknowledging where we're doing this now and why, and then looking at what is at the root, what are the beliefs and fears. And once you have those down, then we move into looking at now what are those truths we need to soothe those younger parts who took on these beliefs and fears and unhealthy patterns, right? That drive these unhealthy patterns. What do we need to say to them to soothe them so that they can ease up and we can move back into balance? Because here's the deal, once we do, the illness no longer needs to be there. It will no longer need to be there. We'll have gotten the message and shifted it to the point where it doesn't need to be there as a messenger anymore. So what are those truths? So again, as an example, the truth might be, I no longer need. Is it nice to have other people? Yes. Do I absolutely need other people in order to survive like I did my mom or dad? No. As an adult, yes, I do need people, but I get to now go find the people that are in alignment and that are supportive, and the relationships personally and professionally that are in balance, that give and receive balance and flow. As a child, we didn't have a choice. We did not have a choice. So that's a truth that you might need to work with, right? I don't need to please. I don't need to be responsible and overgive and overwork and over support people at the expense of myself anymore, right? It's not my responsibility. So those are just some examples of truths that you might need to soothe your younger part. And that is going to be deeply healing. And I'm not going to tell you that it happens overnight. Learning and practicing being this divine parent and healing these unresolved wounds that we're talking about take time. I still fall into it. I fell into it again today with clients. Right? Scheduling, overscheduling when I needed to keep my boundaries. And I did catch myself and go back and do that. But I'm telling you, I've been doing this deep work for a long time and I still fall in. I still fall in. And we do that especially if it's a new relationship, whether it's personal or professional. We're more likely to fall into people pleasing and pretending to be superhuman. And of course, with our family of origin as well, our bio family. All right. So, another piece of healing these wounds, right, is not just soothing, showing up and soothing our younger parts, but then also looking at what boundaries do we need to set externally with ourselves and others so that we are honoring and loving ourselves and putting our wants, needs, and desires first. Because the truth is, if we are here to fully live our soul's purpose, our cup has to be full first. There's this old belief, this old service belief, right? That we're supposed to just give unconditionally to others and don't be self centered, don't be selfish. And we have to keep our cup full, you guys. If we don't, then we are going to end up in burnout and illness and breakdown. And that is not the current definition of service and being of contribution. You're here to be a contribution to yourself and others, but you have got to come first. You've got to come first. So boundaries, boundaries, boundaries. That's part of practicing being a divine parent to yourself, is setting boundaries with yourself and others. Whether that's going to bed at a certain time to get enough sleep, whether it's eating 3 meals, healthy meals a day, whether it's moving your body, taking time for that, taking time for rest and play, not just work, 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 give, give, give. Whether it is telling somebody no because you don't have the bandwidth, right? You just don't. You can't say yes all the time. Even though we are spiritual souls, right? We're souls, we're still in a human body. And we still, because of the density of the human body, have limits on time and energy and also resources, right? To some degree, financial resources. All right. So those are some things to get started with. So some wisdom, some tools. Again, if you are working with me on a deeper level in any of my programs, the guided therapeutic meditations and the self-healing processes and truth loops are huge, very powerful tools to support you to shift these limiting beliefs and fears and activate the truths that I'm talking about here. Because this is where it's at. Our behaviors, our actions won't change until our limiting beliefs and fears shift. And this can take time. It takes time, tools, and support. And if you would like more support from me in healing this wound, you can find a few ways to do that below this video or audio. So sending you lots of blessings, lots of courage to continue to do this deeper work. And again, just so much gratitude and acknowledgement of you. I know this isn't easy. I know it's challenging. It still can be challenging for me at times. And it is what is necessary for us to fully live our soul's purpose and to ultimately shift, heal the planet, whatever word you want to use. So if there's anybody in your life that you feel could benefit from this podcast, please feel free to share this with them. Share this episode with those that would benefit. And again, honoring you and all of your divine gifts and all of the hard work you are here doing, all the things you chose as a soul to walk through in this lifetime. Crazy how much we chose, some of us, how challenging. And I know that we did it to heal, grow, and evolve in a bigger way in this lifetime. Sending you lots of love and a reminder that you don't need to do this alone. You can't do this alone, whether you're getting support from me or somebody else. This is a time to lay down. That's a part of the superhuman. Superwoman, Superman is feeling like we have to do this work alone. And I'm here to tell you that it's impossible, and I still do not do it alone. All right. Namaste.